Tonight on The Most Wanted, he was accused of at least 11 murders, robberies, rapes and carjackings. His underground name was Bro, and by 2007, he had earned himself a place in the list of the most wanted criminals in Kenya. Former Police Commissioner General Mohammed Hussein Ali described him as public enemy #1 and a psychopath, and wanted him dead or alive. On a sunny Saturday afternoon at around 2 p.m. on the 27th of January 2007, an American family undertaking missionary work in the country find themselves in a carjacking situation. Most Wanted followed the events that led to the killings of two renowned missionaries in Africa, Lois Anderson and Zelda White. Humphrey Moura was a family friend to the Andersons for 48 years, and that afternoon they were meant to have lunch together. They first met in 1959 while Lois Anderson taught at St. Paul's University, formerly known as St. Paul's Theological College. Zelda White was a student there.
The Andersons as a family has always been a household name.
Every time Lois and Bill came back to Kenya, they lived very, very simple life.
The Andersons loved Kenya and shuttled between Kenya and the US, visiting their daughters Zelda White and Sylvia Moller and their children. Zelda White was married to a US diplomat, and as we found out, she was more than just a student in Kenya.
She helped so many students. She helped them financially, and she would also help the sick. You know, there are times they would go and visit the sick with some of the students.
My sister was a very unique person.
80-year-old Lois Anderson dedicated her life teaching pastors' wives at St. Paul's University and a host of other activities across Sudan, Kenya and Uganda. And for Sylvia, her mother was a beacon of hope for many.
I wanted Lois to be the parent to my child, my son, who was studying in North Carolina, and they were living in the border of South Carolina. And so I was going to meet them and tell them about my son and give them their phone number. As a matter of fact, that Sunday when I saw them at church, I mentioned that, and I said, well, I'll get in touch with you and give you the details. But as it would have it, as life would have it, it didn't happen.
On the 27th of February 2007, the Andersons were invited over for lunch at Humphrey Moura's place at Uthiru, and this particular day was supposed to be a reunion between two families.
We had agreed that we would meet Humphrey at around 2 o'clock.
And I was keeping in touch with both Sylvia and Zelda.
I called him when we were there, and he said, just go on a little bit further. You know, I'm just a little bit beyond there. So we sort of started going a little further, but it's a very busy highway, lots of vehicles.
A few minutes later, Humphrey Moura's granddaughter, who was with him at the time, saw a car with diplomatic plates pass by the highway and alerted her granddad.
I said, no, they won't pass here because I'm talking to them. Then they drove up. For a few minutes later, then Zelda called me. Humphrey, we seem to have missed the point. That was a few minutes later.
And I just saw that there was a small slip road. So I said, let's just pull over there while we wait. So we just stood there, stayed there. That's when I called Humphrey and I said, now we're right here waiting. He says, I'm coming.
Thereafter, the phone went. The phones went out. I couldn't call Sylvia, I couldn't call Zelda. I don't know what happened to the phones.
Sadly for Humphrey Moura, that was the last phone call he would receive from Zelda White. And the next few minutes were the longest in his life. The Andersons were under attack.
This vehicle came from behind. It was a Pajero, an old Pajero, and it just pulled in front of us. And suddenly we saw two thugs with machine guns.
A stubborn seatbelt and the paralyzing shock of an AK-47 rifle aimed at her face made Lois Anderson and her daughter Zelda White pause in fear before they rolled up the windows. This annoyed the gangsters, who smashed the driver's window and started shooting again.
As they were approaching the car and shooting, my mother said, "I've been hit." They ordered her out of the car and she said, "But I can't move, I'm injured." So of course at that time, I think that's when they just shot her. And then my mother was half hanging out of the car, and the car was starting to move then, because they just piled in. There was like 4 of them. They just came into the car.
It was an incident that was well covered by media outlets across the country, one that sparked an outcry from the diplomatic community. A bloody scene that lingers in the memories of those who were present, the chill of it refusing to go away.
But they're just terrible people. But what about the crowd? They were not helpful. They just wanted to stare and gawk, and even to get help for a mobile phone, so I could, because it had been grabbed from me, so I could call my husband and to get help, was difficult.
I was anxiously looking down, driving up and down, and all of a sudden somebody told me, there were some Zungus who were shot up there. Could they be your friends you are talking about? I said, no, they cannot be there. They were not going there, they were coming, here I am. And then I said, okay, let me drive there, just to drive there. I couldn't believe my eyes.
Later, Sylvia managed to get help and drove her father, her son, and her mother and sister to Nairobi Hospital. And on reaching the hospital, Lois Anderson and Zelda White were pronounced dead. For only 3,000 shillings, a small digital camera, 2 phones and a few sweets, the bloodthirsty gangsters killed 2 missionaries that had left footprints in the lives of many.
For example, you'll understand if you hear that a robber shot because you were stealing 20 million. But now when it comes to people, they rob 3,000 resources, they rob 5,000. You just cannot even connect. It comes as if now killing for them has become an hobby.
Even now, the tears are still there.
It was so personal. It was someone that I knew, someone who touched my life, someone who did everything they possibly can to make the world a better place.
This is the last picture of the Andersons and their extended family on Christmas Day in 2006, before Lois Anderson and Zelda White were killed a month later. Mama Lois Anderson, as she was famously known, and Zelda White are buried at St. Paul's University in Limuru. Next week on Kenya's Most Wanted.
He would kill people at 10 a.m. in the morning, at 3. It's not like he was a robber operating in the night.